Hello Standard 7. Already have started with Shah Suri, and in Shah Suri in the previous video I explained to you about conquest and administration. So I have explained to you about conquest and administration. Today's class will be doing about the land reform and military reforms introduced by Shah Suri. Okay, so which two reforms we have? The land reforms and the military reforms. So here, what is land reform? What was the land reform? What were the reforms introduced by Shah Suri? Land reform and military reform. So revenue collection from the cultivator was based on proper survey of land in Shah Suri. What do you mean by this revenue collection from the cultivator? See, the main source of income was revenue. Revenue which was collected from land. And this was collected from the cultivator after a proper survey of land. Now, what is the meaning of after a proper survey of land? Here, the land was measured accurately. The cultivable land, we are talking about cultivable land, which was measured accurately, and then the land was classified into three categories: good, average, or bad, according to its fertility. And then the revenue was fixed. It means here the government received its share of revenue. So what was the share of revenue? 1/4. Okay, 1/4 of the total produce. And this revenue was paid either in cash or kind. So you see here, Shah had devised the method which was based on accurate measurement of cultivable land and calculations of average produce derived from that land. The land was classified into good, average, or bad according to its fertility. Government received its share of 1/4 of the produce, and it could be paid either in cash or kind. Okay, so as I told, land was measured accurately. The cultivable land was measured accurately, and then they used to calculate the average produced and produce of that land, and the share of the government was received. Okay, so here the reform which was introduced under land reform was Shah introduced the system of patta. Okay, but why he introduced the system of patta? To make the peasants feel secure. Okay, the peasants feel secure. For that, he introduced a new system which was known as the system of patta. So, what is the meaning of system of patta? A patta was proof of right to ownership of land. It was a proof of right to ownership of land. This means title deed of peace land is known as patta even today. Okay, to whom it belonged to. The ownership of land. Okay, proof you have. Okay, this system known as patta. And acceptance of this patta system was known as Kuboliyat. It was called Kuboliyat. So acceptance of it was. So acceptance of it was means acceptance of patta was called Kuboliyat. Understood here? Land revenue, the new system which was known as patta. At the time of revenue assessment, administrative officials, when the revenue assessment was done, the administrative officials were lenient. They were not so strict. They were liberal, they were lenient. While they were strict at the time of tax collection. Okay, the administrative officials, they were lenient at the time of revenue assessment, but they were strict at the time of tax collection. Peasants had no obligation to pay tax at the time of natural calamity such as flood or famine. Okay, this was the relief which was given to the peasants, that they had no obligation to pay tax at the time of natural calamity. And in that time, Shesha provided them loan at such time. So you studied in land reform about the measurement of land and fixing the land revenue. Then you studied about the new system which was introduced was the patta, and acceptance of this patta was known as kubuliyat. Then time of revenue assessment, the administrative officials were lenient, but at the time of tax collection they were very strict. But same time, the during natural calamity, no obligation, it was not forced, it was not compulsory to pay tax, but at the same time he provided loans. Okay, the next you have military reform. So here he had large standing army, he maintained a large standing, very large army, and he introduced some reforms in his military in order to increase the efficiency of his army. So, what were the reforms? Well, number one, he himself selected his soldiers, and the soldiers were paid regularly in salaries, in cash. The second thing which you have to remember in the military reform, he branded all his horses in order to prevent inferior quality horses from being a part of his cavalry. And he maintained the descriptive role, that is chehra. Today you see we have the identity cards, it is something like identity card. So he maintained the descriptive role or chehra of his soldiers and enforced strict discipline over them. All army recruitments were personally supervised by him. So this you have to remember, the large standing army was maintained by Sher Shah Suri. He introduced this system in order to increase the efficiency of his army. He himself selected his soldiers and paid them regular salaries in cash. He branded all his horses in order to prevent inferior quality horses from being a part of his cavalry. He maintained the descriptive role or chehra of his soldiers and enforced strict discipline over them. All army recruitment was personally supervised by him. So in today's class, you studied about land reform and military reform. So please learn the land reform and military reform introduced by Sher Shah Suri. Thank you very much.